Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. And today we are talking about something that I think is pretty important. It's the digital divide, and especially how it affects our elderly. Singapore is on this big push to become a smart nation, and we want to make sure that everybody is able to keep up and nobody's being left behind. We've got a whole bunch of articles and research papers here, and I think you're going to find some of this stuff pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me how this goes beyond just, can grandma use a smartphone? It's really about what happens when technology changes so fast. And we need to make sure that everyone benefits and not just the people who are already pretty good with technology.
That's right, and I found some of the statistics to be a little bit alarming. Did you know that only 45% of seniors in Singapore are willing to even try new tech? That's compared to 65% of younger folks.
Wow.
So that's a big gap. And it's not just about missing out on the latest TikTok trend. It's about something much deeper, I think.
Yeah, it is. It can lead to social isolation. And the thing is, it can be harder to notice than you might think.
Right. One of these articles actually mentioned a study from NUS in 2021, and it found that 6% of older adults in Singapore, they're socially disconnected. But the majority of them actually live with other people. So it made me think, I'm sure we've all felt lonely at times, even when we're surrounded by people.
Yeah, you're right. You can be surrounded by people but still feel disconnected, like you're not really a part of what's going on around you. And that feeling of isolation, it can have really serious consequences for both mental and physical health.
Yeah, how so?
Well, for example, there's a higher risk of things like dementia and heart disease, and even stroke. You're more likely to die sooner if you're socially isolated. Some studies have even said it can be as harmful as smoking.
Wow, that's scary. It's kind of ironic in a way, right?
Yep.
Because Singapore has all these great community programs for seniors, but maybe this push to go digital, it might actually be making things harder for some people to stay connected.
It's definitely something to think about. As we move towards this digital future, we can't forget about the human side of things.
Absolutely. Speaking of human side of things, there's this one article I read, and it told a story about an elderly man. He was riding a tram in Melbourne, and he felt like everyone around him was so busy on their phones that they weren't talking to each other anymore. And he was just kind of invisible, like he didn't exist.
That's such a powerful image. It really highlights that feeling of being left behind. Imagine trying to keep up with all this new technology, especially when you're constantly hearing about all these scams that target the elderly.
Oh, yeah. It's scary stuff.
It can be very overwhelming, and it's understandable why some seniors would just want to avoid technology altogether.
And you have to remember, 1 in 10 seniors in Singapore, they have health issues that make using technology even more difficult, like problems with their vision or their hearing, or maybe they have trouble with fine motor skills.
Right. It's not always as easy as just picking up a phone and knowing what to do.
Yeah. I remember when they switched over to the Simply Go card for public transport, my own grandmother had a really hard time figuring out how to top it up online.
And that's a great example, because it shows that even something that seems simple to us, it can be a huge barrier for someone who isn't used to using technology.
It makes you realize that we need to be a lot more understanding and inclusive
Yeah,
when we're designing and implementing these new technologies.
definitely.
So it's clear that just offering digital literacy training isn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
We need a more thoughtful and multi-pronged approach to really bridge this divide.
Absolutely.
So where do we even start?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's something that we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive. We'll talk about some of the innovative solutions that are emerging around the world and right here in Singapore. And we'll discuss how we can all contribute to creating a more digitally inclusive society. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
So we've been talking about this digital divide and how it's affecting our elderly. But the more I think about it, the more I realize it's not just a senior issue, it's something that's going to affect all of us eventually.
That's a good point. As technology becomes a bigger and bigger part of our lives, we need to make sure everyone can keep up.
Right. Like think about how much we communicate through screens now. We're always texting instead of calling, scrolling through social media, instead of having face-to-face conversations. And for seniors who aren't comfortable with all that, it's like they're missing out on a whole part of life.
Exactly. And that lack of connection, it can have a really serious impact on their health and well-being. It's not just about feeling lonely. There's a real link between social isolation and an increased risk of health problems.
Like what kind of health problems are we talking
Well,
about?
things like depression and anxiety, heart disease, even dementia.
Wow. So it's like loneliness itself is a health risk factor. That's crazy.
Mm.
But what I found interesting is It's not always about having access to technology.
Mhm.
Some seniors have smartphones and internet access, but they still struggle.
Yeah, that's where digital literacy comes in. It's not enough to just have the tools. You need to know how to use them effectively. And also, it's about understanding how technology can actually improve your life, whether that's staying connected with family, accessing information, or even just pursuing your hobby.
So it's not just a matter of giving someone a tablet
Hmm.
and saying, okay, you're good to go. You need to give them the support and the guidance to really use it in a way that makes sense for them.
Exactly. It's about empowering them to use technology in a way that is meaningful and makes them feel confident.
Right. So digital literacy training is important, but it's not the whole solution.
Definitely not. We need a much broader approach, one that considers the specific needs and challenges of our seniors.
You know what I think would be really helpful? Those digital citizen corners we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
I love that idea. Having dedicated spaces in the community where seniors can go to get help with technology.
Right. It's like creating a safe and supportive environment where they can
Done.
learn at their own pace without feeling pressured.
And they can connect with others who are going through the same thing. It's a great way to build community.
Exactly. And it fits perfectly with the idea of active aging. We want to encourage seniors to engage with technology, but in a way that is social and enjoyable.
Now, another thing I was thinking about is a lot of these apps and websites, they're so complicated. No wonder some seniors get overwhelmed.
Oh, I totally agree. Tech companies need to do a better job of designing things that are user-friendly for everyone, including seniors.
Yeah, like maybe having a senior mode
Hmm.
with bigger icons and simpler menus.
That's a great idea. And it's not just about making things simpler. It's about understanding the specific concerns that seniors have.
Like what kind of concerns?
Well, a lot of seniors are worried about online safety. They've heard about scams and identity theft, and they're hesitant to share their personal information online.
Right.
So we need to build their trust by providing them with clear and easy to understand information about how to stay safe online.
So it's about education as well.
Absolutely. When seniors feel empowered, they're much more likely to embrace technology.
But I think there's also an emotional component to all this.
Oh, definitely. Learning new things can be challenging, especially later in life.
Yeah. A lot of seniors are afraid of making mistakes.
Right. Or they might feel embarrassed that they don't know how to do something.
So we need to be patient with them.
Exactly. And encouraging. We need to create a supportive environment where seniors feel comfortable asking questions and trying new things.
And I think family and friends have a really important role to play here.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes all it takes is a familiar face or a patient voice to help someone overcome their fear of technology.
You know, it's not just about helping seniors. It's about creating a more inclusive society for everyone.
That's a great point. When we break down these digital barriers, we all benefit.
Exactly. Because everyone has something to contribute.
Right. And when we create a society where everyone can participate, we all gain from the diversity of perspectives and experiences.
So it sounds like there's a lot we can do. But it requires a shift in our thinking.
It does. We need to start thinking about digital inclusion as a priority, not just an afterthought.
So where do we go from here?
That's a great question, and one that we'll explore in more detail after a quick break. We'll talk about some of the innovative initiatives and strategies that are already making a difference around the world. And we'll discuss how we can all contribute to creating a more digitally inclusive future for everyone. So stay with us.
So we've talked about the challenges of this digital divide and how deep it really goes. But now I want to talk about solutions. Because there must be people out there doing some really cool things to try and fix this, right?
Oh, absolutely. The really exciting thing is that it's not just governments or big tech companies trying to tackle this. We're seeing amazing work happening at the community level with volunteers and families coming up with really creative ways to get everyone connected.
So give me some examples. What's actually working out there?
Well, one really promising approach is what's called digital inclusion hubs. These are basically community centers designed specifically to help seniors get comfortable with tech. They offer everything from basic computer classes to one-on-one help. So someone could get help setting up an email account or learning how to video chat with their grandkids.
That's fantastic. It's like a safe space for them to learn without feeling intimidated. What about here in Singapore? Are there any programs like that happening locally?
Definitely. There are a bunch of organizations and community centers in Singapore that have digital literacy programs for seniors. For example, Lions Befrienders has a program called Cyber Guide, and they have volunteers who will actually go to seniors' homes and help them with their tech. And then you've got the People's Association. They offer all kinds of courses on things like basic computer skills or even how to use social media.
So it's not just about knowing how to turn on a computer or use a mouse. It's showing them how technology can make their lives better in practical ways, right?
Exactly. It's about connecting with family, accessing information, and even doing things they enjoy, like hobbies. And it goes beyond just the practical stuff, too. There's a real push to use technology in fun ways that seniors will enjoy.
Oh, like what?
Well, some senior activity centers are starting to use virtual reality to take seniors on virtual field trips, to museums or to other countries, and some are using tablets for group games or other activities.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like making learning fun and engaging.
Right. It helps break down those mental barriers that some seniors might have about technology.
Exactly. And another thing I think is really cool is those intergenerational programs where you have younger people like students helping seniors with tech.
Oh, yeah, those are great. It's like a buddy system. Seniors get the help they need, and the younger generation gets to share their skills and learn something, too.
Everyone wins.
Exactly. But I think the biggest takeaway from all this is that bridging this digital divide isn't just about having the latest gadgets or knowing how to use a certain app. It's about creating a culture where everyone feels included and supported in the digital world, no matter how old they are or how much they know about technology.
So it's really a much deeper issue than we might think. It's about changing our mindset and making sure nobody gets left behind.
Absolutely.
I think this has been a really eye-opening conversation. And what I've learned is that we all have a part to play in fixing this problem, whether it's volunteering our time to teach seniors about technology, or speaking up for more user-friendly design, or just being a little more patient with the seniors in our own lives. Every little bit helps.
I couldn't agree more. Building a more inclusive digital world is something we all have to work on together.
So to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned something new and feel inspired to make a difference. And remember, building a more digitally inclusive world is a journey, and it's one we take together.